All right, I'm gonna spotlight.
Welcome, everyone. Hello, Rabbi Jay and Gilda, would you like to open us with our welcome?
Sure. Welcome, everyone. We are so happy to meet you in community, a beloved community. Welcome to a first, I dare say, in a series. We start this off by gathering information, stories, experiences, practices. We don't just put best practices. We want to know practices that you have tried and didn't do well, so that we can learn also from our mistakes. This is Disrupting the School to Prison Pipeline. And as my good friend and teacher, as well as student, but mostly a teacher, Anthony Wright from the Black Prisoners Caucus says, when you learn, you don't return. And he meant return to a penal system, return to lack of confidence. You don't return to a lack of imagination. My dear friends, sometimes we feel embattled. We know that, as Bell Hooks says, that the classroom is a radical space of possibility, a radical place of possibility. But that classroom is right here in this symposium. That classroom is in your home. That classroom is in your neighborhood. That classroom is wherever you find yourself, the opportunity and the pleasure of learning and teaching. We know that 14 million students in the USA are in schools with police officers, but no counselor, nurse, psychologist, or social worker. That doesn't make any sense. We need to look at the entire system, the whole child. And so get ready, because we're going to talk across significant differences. We're going to learn from each other, and we're going to step into our brave space. Our partners, and maybe I'll let Rabbi Jay say that, because maybe I'm just talking too much. You can introduce our partners and all of that, Rabbi Jay.
Oh, okay. I was going to let you introduce the partners, but I'm happy to do it.
Okay.
Thank you, Gilda. I love that idea of the school as a place of radical possibility. This program was initiated by the Multi-Faith Coalition for Restorative Justice. We are a grassroots community group that formed in response to Gilda's award-winning film, Since I've Been Down. The film tells the story of Kamanti Carter, who was part of our program tonight. At the time, Kamanti was serving what was intended to be a life sentence for a crime he committed at the age of 18. However, while Kamanti was in prison, he was mentored by the Black Prisoners Caucus, and he changed the trajectory of his own life, and he changed the lives of others by creating Teach, Taking Education and Changing History, a peer-to-peer education program which inspired a passion for learning and harmonious interracial community in the incarcerated men in the prison that never existed before in that environment. When we see and hear the adult Kamanti in this film, we see a man with a great love of learning, with a love of teaching, and with an ability to lead and to do tremendous good in the world. But these qualities were not seen in Kamanti by others when he was a child in school. No one saw this potential. No one grasped this leadership ability. And for me, one of the big takeaways of this film is that the way we respond to a child in school can spell the difference between a life in prison and a flourishing life of community leadership. When I was a graduate school in education many decades ago, a professor taught me that teachers typically make this classic mistake. They think that if they just get rid of what they think are the three worst troublemakers in the class, their class will be heaven on earth. And what they find is they get rid of these 3 children and 3 more take their place. Every person is responsible for their own behavior. But if you have to expel half the class, maybe there is something wrong with the design of the class. Maybe there's something wrong with the design of the school or the society which creates that kind of a result. We often make the same mistake in society that teachers make in the classroom. We think that if we just get rid of the so-called bad people, the ones causing all the trouble, we will all live in peace and harmony. But if our society is throwing out half the class, if we are incarcerating record numbers of people, more than any other Western country, maybe it's time we look at ourselves. Maybe it's time we looked at this classroom we call our community. Tonight, we've invited people from a variety of perspectives, youth and adults, to start a conversation and to ask ourselves these questions. How can we ensure that the humanity of all our children, and not just the humanity of all our children, and their potential for excellence is realized? How can we ensure that we are not effectively sentencing a child to life in prison while they're still in grade school by the way we respond to that child, or by the way we fail to respond to that child? How can we nurture the true potential of the Comanche Carters of the world who are now in the 2nd grade and the 3rd grade and the 6th grade, so that they don't have to discover their love of learning and their leadership ability for the first time in a prison cell? How can we learn to see differently? What can we do differently, all of us, so that our schools become pipelines to success and happiness and not pipelines to prison? So we've invited a variety of perspectives from people who are doing the work, responding to these questions, and they are doing it well. And so I will introduce them. We have invited Dr. Ben Danielson from ASHE, William Hairston from CCYJ, Dr. James Carter from the Breakfast Group, Dr. Gilda Shepard, you've already met, Devin Adams and Comanche Carter from the Black Prisoners Caucus, and Stacy Lappin and her staff from Belonging Partners. And we have some wonderful young people, Miracle, Manny, and Micah, who are going to give us their perspective. Our intention is that, as Gilda said, that this is not only a conversation, a collaborative conversation across difference, but that this is the beginning. That this conversation will continue beyond this evening among the people and organizations represented here tonight, and including you. We hope that you will want to be part of this conversation. It's a collaborative effort, and all of us can be part of it. And with that, I'll turn the program over to Sylvia Hadnett, who is our host for the evening.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Jay and Gilda. Rabbi Jay and Gilda are the co-leaders of the Multi-Faith Coalition. So much thanks to you both for welcoming us. And just like they shared, my name is Sylvia. I'm an educator and an artist, and also a practitioner of love. I also just so happen to be a facilitator with Belong Partners, and I'm really excited to be your host for this evening as we walk through together some learning and connection. So speaking of learning and connection, we wanted to start out the evening actually in connection. So I know you're in a Zoom with 100 other people that you've probably never met before. Maybe you've met 1 or 2 other folks. And we're really excited to give you all the opportunity to see who else might be here. You know, if we were in person, you would have had tea and cookies, chatted people up. We're going to create a sense of that here on Zoom. So we're going to send you out into a breakout room with about 4 other people. And we would love for you all to share a little bit about yourselves with each other. We have some prompts. So we're suggesting you might share your name, your pronouns, what brought you here, and hope that you have for the time tonight. And just remember, the main intention is for you to connect with the other people in the space. We also will be sharing screen in the breakout rooms. So hopefully you'll be able to see the prompts. So if you don't remember them after me saying them just one time, you'll have a visual too. How are those breakout rooms coming along?
They're ready.
Sweet. All right, I will hit share and we can send people over. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. I hope that was nice to be able to to connect with some like-minded people here at this event. And I know that you all are here for a specific conversation. And thank you so much. It is time to get started with the conversation that you all are here for. So we're here to discuss how to disrupt the school to prison pipeline. Many of us, if not all of us, are aware of the many intersecting ways that oppression happens in the United States. The school to prison pipeline, it's a phenomenon also sometimes understood as a school and prison nexus. It's something that's been going on for as long as this country has been around. And it's something that we're ready to continue adding to the conversation about how to disrupt. So here to help us learn so we won't return, as she shared, I will hand the mic over to Gilda to introduce our first panel, which is the youth panel. Dr. Shepard. Dr. Shepard, you are muted if you weren't aware.
I'm glad I was muted because I was looking for my notes to make sure that our phenomenal youth had their proper introduction. Once in the film, Kamonte Carter says, it's one thing studying the subject. It's another thing being the subject. And so we wanted to give ample time, the most of our time, to our youth leaders. We are so happy that they are here today with us. I think is a miracle with us yet?
Yeah, I did send her an email. So
Okay.
Hey guys, I'm here.
Okay,
oh,
a
you are a miracle! Yay!
Yeah,
Hello.
good. And
Hold
wait
on,
a
a miracle.
minute.
I'm gonna spotlight you. Hold on.
Yeah, good. All right. Well, let's start with a miracle. First of all, let's start with her name. Her mother named her a miracle, right? M-Y-R, there she is. Yes, M-Y-R-I-C-A-L. A miracle is 17 years old and in the 12th grade. She's a youth leader in Tacoma, and I really mean that. People know her. And she started her own youth-led program called Black is Almighty. You talk about confidence, clarity, and the ability to have solidarity with her peers. A miracle is an amazing young woman. Manny is, like he says, an aspiring entrepreneur. He's 15 years old, born in Seattle, and he loves football. Look at that smile. Manny is also in a film called Critical What? Please look out for it. I'm sure we will put it out so you'll know. He's doing research on homelessness and equity and inequity. Manny is amazing. Micah, his younger brother, Micah is in the 7th grade, and Micah was voted the president of the 7th grade. Everybody, do you hear me? Who we have here? Micah is, he's a dedicated practitioner of musical arts. So we have artists, organizers, revolutionary, compassionate, brilliant young people. And of course, Kamonte Carter, who is like my son, who I'm sure I get on his nerves sometimes, like a mother. Right? Kamonte Carter, I've known for over 20 years, and he was the inspiration for the film Since I've Been Down. He has been the past president of the Black Prisoners Caucus and the founder of Taking Education and Creating History, not changing it, creating it, right? So he sees ourselves, our own agency. And now he's with the Black Prisoners Caucus community group, among many other things that he's doing. He's also an entrepreneur. Kamonte Carter is a phenomenal young man. All right. And we'll take it away. Kamonte Carter will facilitate a beautiful conversation with our three amazing youth. That we gave them 3 questions and they have been thinking about it and talking about it. So take it away, Kamonte. Look at those smiles.
All right, all right. How's everybody doing? Miracle, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Oh, I'm well. First and foremost, I just want to thank everybody who pulled up today, man, just to be able to be a part of this conversation. Like they said, my name is Kamonte Carter. And one of the things that, I wanted to, I really tried to do as we thought about young folks that we could reach out to in community was, really be able to make sure that we're reaching out to, young folks who are in proximity to, I think, a lot of the issues that were going on, right? And as we have this conversation, I think this is a great time for us to be able to hear the voices, hear the perspectives of young folks, in order for us just to be able to see the things that they see, experience some of the things that they experience. And so we got a list of questions, 3, and we've had an opportunity to kind of tease these questions out. And so the first question, as we kind of pitch it off to our young panelists, it says, please share a story of an incident that either of you were involved in or someone else has been involved in that demonstrates that there is a school to prison pipeline. I want to read over the questions first, and then we'll kind of ping pong across the 3. The second question will be then to please explain how you view the school to prison pipeline as systemic. In other words, do you see the pipeline alive in laws, policies, etc., in school, in our society? And give an example. Third one is, what do you think needs to be done to disrupt or stop this school to prison pipeline, particularly in Washington State? And so, as I've seen these forms of questions, one of the things we able to make sure that we had some good context. And so now I'm gonna go ahead and pose the question off to our 3 brilliant guests, right? Is that, can you guys share or identify a story that you guys have been involved in or that you've seen happen in other people's lives, right? And we're talking about rules, behaviors, and practices from the school institution, whether it's from school, teachers, principals, that exhibit behavior that ultimately makes it difficult for kids to be able to participate in a learning environment, right? And so that right there is an opportunity for us to be able to describe exactly what that pipeline looks like. And so, for a Miracle, Manny, or Micah, please share with this group of wonderful folks who's interested in learning more about just the everyday intricacies of young Black and brown kids who go to school every day. What are some of the issues that they face that makes it difficult for them to be able to learn in that learning environment? Can you share that with this group of folks today?
I can start off. I can go first. Okay. This is just some personal experience that I went through with a few of my cousins, with them going to school. When we were going to school, they were going through a lot at home and they weren't aware how to control those emotions, and they were victims to emotional distress, and they were victims to their environment, and I was regulated to them. They thought maybe acting out in a certain way was regular, but I'm so sorry, guys. My Wi-Fi is messing up. Can you guys hear me?
We hear you just fine.
Hear you.
Okay. But yeah, they were I'm so sorry, my Wi-Fi keeps messing up.
You may think it's messing up, but we hear you fine.
Okay. Okay. When we were growing up, I felt like they went through a lot at home and didn't know how to control those emotions when they were at school. So a lot of emotions that were regulated at home weren't regulated at school to them. Them reacting in certain ways, getting angry and feeling like they may have to put their hands on someone because that's what they were taught at home. That wasn't regulated at school, but at home, that was so regular to them. How were they to know that it was wrong? I feel like a lot of kids are trying to express their emotions in a lot of ways, on the only way that they know how, which is negative. And I feel like instead of people like digging deeper into those emotions, they automatically got into some type of trouble, even suspension, just from like overreacting and not knowing how to control those emotions, you know?
Yeah, for sure. So you're saying is that a lot of home life, you mean, can also be a lot of things that contributes to, you mean, young folks not knowing how to cope, like getting to school, being able to process it the right way. They
For
get
sure.
punished. Okay?
For sure.
Okay. Thank you for that. Manny or Micah, any one of you guys got anything to, also share at that point?
Yeah. I feel like in school there's not much of a sense of identity. Like it's hard to find like your sense of who you are. And an example of that is at a school I just transferred from. One rule that there was that I always found so weird is that you're not allowed to wear hoods or any head covering of any sort. And they said it was so that they could always recognize you. But I saw that as they just didn't want you to wear your clothes the way that you want to. And I feel like if I'm going to school and I'm like, this school doesn't even want me to be myself and be who I am comfortably while I'm sitting here learning, like, then what's the point? And me, I'm like, I still is like, I understand my parents make it a very big point to make sure to let me know that school is important. But to those people who don't have those people around them telling them that school is important and that this is something that you need to do, like I've seen it that some kids are just like, this school doesn't treat me well. They don't let me be who I want to be and be who I feel comfortable being. So why am I spending my time and my energy and waking up early and getting home later and doing all this extra effort for somebody who doesn't want me to be who I feel like I am?
Man, thank you for sharing that. What's up, Micah? You got something you want to share with us?
Related to Manny and Miracle's response, when you enter a school, like they want you to be good, nice, and just good qualities, but then they also want you to be a certain, not how you're like you used to. I'm trying to reword this a little different, but they're looking for something else, and some schools focus on the cons of everything about you, depending on who you are, really, and what you like your exterior. They don't focus on the interior of you.
And you said that they don't focus on the interior. What's a good example of how schools are really allowing? I mean, can you paint a picture for the folks who are a little bit older, who haven't been to school in a while? You mean on how a day for some of these kids who are growing up, who are facing some of these social challenges or these barriers at school? How do you think it's showing up in and how they value education?
They value education like great. They value education great, and
Take your time. There ain't no rush.
it's awkward right now.
Right, and I guess well, let me ask it a different way, right? Because what tends to happen is like a lot of families are always encouraging kids to go to school in order for us to get a degree, get a good job, right? But now some of these laws and these rules that are in place, right? So we Manny said is now they're talking about no hoods, right? They're changing who you are, how you dress, right? There might be some kids who that might be all that they have to to wear to school as hoods, but unfortunately they can't wear their own clothes because of the rules that are there. And so when we think about, these kids who find, many of these rules that may affect them belonging in school or feeling welcomed, how do you think that contributes to the future or their journey or their learning journey in school overall? Right, because for myself, I dropped out of school because I lost that connection to folks who really cared about my learning. Right, like I felt that this was a space that I could come or not come, and it wasn't going to make a difference to my teachers, to those folks, because they didn't value my education. Right, and so how do you see that trend? How do you see that taking place in some of the kids' lives that you guys go to school with every single day?
Some kids take things in like a different type of way. So if they're told, you can't wear that, they may take it like very, very like it can make them very mad and cause them to do wild things and things you can't imagine. Yeah.
How about you?
I feel like how do I put this in words? Give me a second. Like, I'm trying to figure out a word to word this. Like, I feel like if kids are not told, like, if they're not doing what they're supposed to do, they get in like trouble for it. Like, for example, like what you guys are talking about with like wearing hoods and everything, that might really what they have to their identity. And a lot of kids start to feel like school's too hard. And when you're a teenager and you don't really know the full effect of life, you don't really know that going to school matters, and that's what you have to do. And when you're a teenager and you have the capability to do what's easier for you and do what makes you feel more welcomed, it makes you feel more loved at that time, that's what you're going to do. And 9 times out of 10, that's not at school, because at school they feel like outcasts, like they cannot be themselves, you know?
Man, absolutely, absolutely. Right. And I think this is one of the biggest questions that many adults, people go to school for too long in order to become professionals in an area that they get just a smidget closer to learning the truth, right? Is what are some of the solutions that we could use, right? Society, we as a community, to be able to make learning environments for kids mean more belonging, more inclusive, more tolerant of the lives that many of these kids bring into a learning environment, to make it safe for them to be able to complete their journey in education. How do we keep young folks involved and not tripping over the barriers that are there for them? What are some of the solutions that folks can take with them today?
I think a solution could be that that there's more people, like more like visual representation around. I even know, like at my school, the school I go to now, like it feels good, like walking around being like, oh yeah, he looks like, oh yeah, we got the same type of hair. Even like my principal is a Black man, and that just like just more visual representation, and it just the little things like that just makes school feel more at home when you can like see yourself, like other people who are going through the same types of who have the same types of problems, and then maybe not like same types of problems, but like have like the same type of like experiences, and people who you feel like you can resonate with better than going as opposed to going to a school that's like, you look around, you don't see nobody who looks like you. You can't really talk to people about stuff that's really bothering you because they don't understand. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Thank you for that, Jewel. Sorry, Miracle.
You're all good. I agree with Manny as well. I feel like even having more counselors that look like us and understand the trauma that we could be going through and understanding just how to dig deeper within kids and like, like see through the attitudes that day, see through them fighting and see through all of that because what kids want the most at that age is to be understood because they already don't feel understood anywhere else. And I also feel like if you're going to be like working with kids that look like us, do your research on our trauma and everything else that we've been through, because you can't just be working with us and not knowing like us and how we actually are. Because what I've grown up and realized is that like a non-colored person and a colored person goes to two completely different type of lives. And that's something that you need to learn and actually educate yourself on because everything that they went through when they're younger is affecting how they're showing up in your class that day.
Oh, come on, girl, teach today. You know what I mean?
Thank you so much, Miracle. You got some more words there, Kamanti?
No, I was just about to ask, either a Miracle, Manny, or Micah, man, if there was anything else that they wanted to leave on the minds of, all of these wonderful folks, man, who pulled up to hear you guys' perspective, Like, go ahead and represent for the young folks today, man. What you want them to know?
A way to make the world more welcoming. Like, yeah, welcoming is trying to like make things a calmer state and make things a more calmer state so then and make the kids that have a hard time try to figure out a way to not make them so overwhelmed and make them fit in.
Yeah, kind of like basically what Micah said. I feel like in school, I feel like a lot of it is very stressful and overwhelming, especially in high school, because everybody's just like, now you got to figure out what you want to do, and you got to sign, and you got to apply for college and all this, and everybody kind of just pushes it all on you, like low key, kind of last second, and it's like, I feel like school would be a lot more uh like welcoming, and a lot of kids would probably see it through to the end more if people if people in schools let us take it a bit like more one step at a time, like, and not throw overwhelmed so much. Yeah.
There's a hand raised.
I think we're gonna not do questions now just because of time. So I think we're gonna do you want to go on to the appreciation part, Sylvia, you think? Maybe that would be.
Yeah, let's do that. Kamante, thank you so much for leading the youth in such a wonderful discussion. And audience, I know that lots of you must be thinking so many things. The youth shared so much wisdom with us from just the basics of school being too stressful and overwhelming, as well as not being a place of belonging. And touching a little bit on being punished for just being themselves as well. And I know that you all want to participate, and I want to invite you to participate in one way, which is to offer some gratitude up for the youth and for Kamanti for that wonderful panel discussion in the chat. So I want to see lots of wonderful messages coming in. A Miracle, Manny, Micah, please feel free to take your time reading those messages. Kamanti, you too. And while those are coming in, I think we will take some time to transition and hear from some of the adults that are also leading in this space with some solutions. We heard straight from the youth, and we're going to hear from Billy Hairston from the Center for Children and Youth Justice. We're also going to be hearing from Dr. James Carter from the Breakfast Group, Dr. Ben Danielson, who's the director of ASHE, and from UW Medicine, and Devin Adams from the Black Prisoners Caucus Community Group. I believe these gentlemen are coming on, so I will close this. And I think magically we will all be on stage when I end this screen. Here we are. Okay, well, we've got magically 2 out of 4. That's pretty good, pretty good. So we're just waiting. Awesome. There's Dr. Ben Danielson. Hello, hello. And Devin, wonderful to see you all here. Thank you all so much for being here today. So I wanted to start off the beginning of this panel, just asking you all to respond a little bit to what the youth had shared. So maybe if you want to, you could share your name since you haven't had an opportunity to introduce yourself yet, and your pronouns, where you're coming from, and your response to what the youth shared. And whomever would like to may go first, but if you take too long, I will volunteer somebody.
Against the fear of getting called on, I'll just jump in first. I'm Billy Hairston. I'm the director of the impact programs at the Center for Children and Youth Justice. And what that means is that I get to work with the people that work with young people in a number of different capacities. But I would just say kind of one of the things that mostly stood out to me is when we talk about the belonging factor for young people, feeling like they belong in school and they feel connected to the people in school. I know we think of how do you track that, or how do you improve that, or where are the touch points? And I would say, you can always refer back to, like, they have the healthy youth survey that they do in school. And one of the questions on that school is there an adult in the building that I feel I trust or feels cares about me? And definitely having people in the building and around and knowing who cares about you in the building are definitely big kind of key aspects to keeping young people engaged in school or in learning, whether they have issues going on in or out of the house. I know one of the young people also mentioned, like, you never know what a young person's going through. You don't know what their trauma is. You don't know what's happening, but also you can't know what those things are and connect those young people to services or resources to support them if they don't feel like anyone in the building recognizes them or cares about them, right? I know Kamanti also mentioned that he had lost connection with folks at the school because he felt like it was a place that whether he showed up or didn't show up, no one would notice if he was gone. So then that's, again, that same kind of effect. As we know, and I'll be brief here, I'll get done after this little kind of statement, but essentially, like, there's clear evidence in, like, what happens to young people and the cost that it is for them to not be in school and not be educated, right? And also be excluded from school in certain ways, right? The touch points for how those connect to other systems is very clear too, but also what people kind of don't put in those touch points on the flip side is that when our young people aren't present in school, then they're absent from the classroom. Their presence is missed, right? And their expertise and their brilliance that they bring to the space and their differences are also missed. And that has a negative effect on the rest of the classroom as well. So not only are the young people that are missing school for whatever those reasons are negatively affected and connected to other outcomes or systems that aren't positive, but the young people that are in those classrooms that those young people are absent from are also negatively affected because they miss their influence. So that's why.
My name is Dr. James Carter. I'm the executive director for the Breakfast Group. We provide mentoring services for our young Black and Brown men and women in the Seattle public high schools. One of the things that I heard from the youth that were speaking a little bit earlier was about trauma. And it's really an important factor that needs to be at the forefront when it comes to the decision-making process of how we work to combat the school to prison pipeline. What's a factor that is not talked about when we're talking about how we're going to educate our young people is the trauma that they deal with before they even get to the classrooms. We have in our community students who are dealing with Okay.
Talk about that, Dr. Carter. Go ahead.
No worries. We have students who are dealing with various kinds of trauma before they even get to the classroom. Homelessness, domestic violence, violence in the neighborhood, not having a meal from Friday at lunch till Monday morning when they get back to school. But yet when students get to school, they're expected to sit at their desk, behave, participate meaningfully, and be ready to engage in that educational process. But what isn't taken into consideration is that journey that our children have to make before they're able to sit down in that seat to receive that education. Does that directly lead to our children being placed into the school to prison pipeline? You know, there are various amount of reasons, but some of the reasons are really simple and are certainly within our control to be able to assist with. It's one of the reasons why mentoring and counseling are so important to me as for this conversation. You know, I was blessed to have the opportunity to have a lot of work experience. I've done 28 years in the Air Force Reserves, and I've done 23 years as a Chicago police officer, and I've had the opportunity to attain several degrees. But my mindset is I ask myself the question, what can I do to not be a gatekeeper for our children becoming the best that they can be? And the way that the way that I keep myself from being a gatekeeper is giving back that knowledge of how to gain experience, giving back that knowledge of how to work with others, how to manage conflict, how to organize time, how to make better decisions, how to make better use of the resources that we do have, how not to be too proud to ask for help. So I think this symposium is really worthwhile because what it does is it gives us the opportunity to provide a different site, a different line of focus for people who are not who don't have access to some of the views, some of the opinions, and some of the ideas that the entire community has. So it's my 2 cents.
My name is Ben Danielson, and I'm really honored to be in this space with a lot of people I've admired for a long time, and I'm adding to that list Americo and Manny and Micah. Oh, I'm deeply moved and feel so honored to have heard from you, to feel a presence, and to just have a chance to listen. I think I just want more of that, just a lot more of that. I just wonder, like, what kind of a society we would be building if we were really listening, like deeply, deeply listening to what is being so clearly told to us. What strikes me about what you were saying, Americo and Manny and Micah, is that you know exactly what you need. You know exactly what you want. You're so clear about the vision that you see. I heard you describe not only what it looks like, but what it feels like to be in a space where people something beyond belonging. It's got to be like just love, like a community that absolutely loves you and sees you and respects you and lifts you up and understands that you have some incredibly brilliant things to share. I heard just a willingness to speak to a lot of people that you didn't know before and share exactly how you felt and be very, very clear about that. I heard a spirit and a power and a strength that, man, it's just, we're supposed to be talking about, pipelines and traumas and things like that, but I also see something beautiful and powerful. I see a future in your voices. Man, Manny and Micah and America, I see a future, okay? I see something incredible. I see something like I want to live up to be the kind of person that you want me to be in society to support you because where you are going, I want to be led by where you're going. I want to understand everything you have to share. I want to hear more because I think I know that you know exactly what you need. And for all the ways in which we create and construct a society where we make decisions, sometimes we decide whether we know or not what you need. We have to pause sometimes like we have tonight and just recognize that you are the brilliance, you are the voice, you are the experience, you are the ones that we need to be taking our cues from. And we have to be just just honoring how powerful it was in the ways that you shared. So, man, just thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, man, thank you, Devin Adams, a member of the Black Prisoners Caucus. I want to thank the young folks as well. As they were sharing and we're talking about the school to prison pipeline, what it reminded me was being in prison. Staff telling you what clothes you can wear, what responses were appropriate and were appropriate. And then my own experience in school of coming home or coming to school after not necessarily having a great night the night before and not understanding how to process that trauma in the classroom. And it might make people feel uncomfortable, but when I think about it, you know, what I hear them saying is like white supremacy culture is still alive, that tells you how you're supposed to show up in a space, how you're supposed to act. And if you don't act that way, you'll be held accountable and you'll be punished, as a way to get you to fall back in line with how folks want them to act. And in Washington State, I think we're real good with progressive language and policies, but we continue to have the same problems over and over, where we have predominantly white women in classrooms that are scared of the students that don't look like them, and don't create access for people in community who can have relationship with these young people and guide them through the educational process, because they're scared of them too. And they don't want to actually have to talk to somebody and answer questions around why they're creating these environments in classrooms that don't make children feel welcome or loved or cared for. Because if teachers really did love and care for their students the way they said, they love them like they cared about their own children and their own family members, and punishing them and kicking them out of school wouldn't be an appropriate response. First, you want to understand what was going on and help them give language to understand what they're experiencing so they could actually process it and create a community within that classroom. Because everybody here is right. Those young people have the answers. They just need access to the language and to have someone hold that container so they can communicate and learn how to support one another. They need us to just get out the way and hold them and love on them. So like when I hear them talking about this stuff, it's saddening in the fact that we'll have a conversation and know that they have the wisdom, and that there's community that's on this screen right now, and there's other community members that might not have the prestigious backgrounds but have the shared lived experiences but won't get access into those classrooms to be able to hold those young people.
Thank you so much, all four of you gentlemen. Each four of you brought such a different perspective to your answer. And I think also touched on a little bit of my second question, which is great because we're just about ready to start moving on. But before we do, if there's one last one of you, only one, that feels that there's maybe one solution that hasn't been said yet. I've heard a lot of things about centering the youth, about leading with love, about creating spaces of belonging. Also, some conversation around just the overlaps of the ways that discipline works inside of prisons and the ways that discipline works inside of schools. Any solutions to that problem that hasn't been named yet that needs to be said for the good of the order before we move on?
I'll just jump in then really fast and so
Thank you.
The solution is, no, I'm just joking. I don't really have an answer, but what I would say is functionally that Healthy Youth survey data, everyone can ask for that. And if you go look at it and you see the schools that say that they have the most kids that say there's not an adult in the building that care about me, and you look at their suspension rates or exclusion rates, they're probably the highest. You can call those schools to account specifically versus talking about large policies that are district wide. You can identify where our young people are getting treated poorly the fastest, the most, and then go right into those spaces and demand accountability. So that way you can kind of support on the local space, and that's all information that your school districts and the local school district will have, and you can ask for all that stuff very easily and specifically. So
Thank you so Oh, please, Dr. Carter.
I was about to say, if I can add one point too.
Yeah.
I think for the people who are on the symposium who are here with us today, have an understanding of the differences between equity and equality, and then what's really reality.
Yeah.
And see where you fall or where you are in those differences, because some people believe that they're equitable in their thoughts. Some people believe that equality has been provided across the board, and then reality is something completely different when it comes to the bigger picture. So
Thank you so much. What a huge concept boiled down into such a juicy nugget. Yeah, equity and equality, not the same thing. And Billy, I also really appreciate you giving us a super tangible, very empowering pathway forward. That's the blueprint right there. Now I feel a little bit bad. So Dr. Danielson, Devin, any last solutions that you'd also like to add?
Well, I think sometimes we focus on all the things that we need to put in place for youth. And I also feel like we, as either older youth with gray hair like me, or just as so-called adults, actually, we need to be trained. We need specific teaching and training. We need curriculum that actually empowers us to be better at listening, to be better at focusing, to make our organizations and the way that we make decisions actually be a space where youth's voice is heard, is mattered, and is acted on. So I think there has to be some of that work as well.
Thanks, Dr. Ben. Anything from you, Devin?
Yeah, I could kind of jump off of what Ben was saying is, learn how to do that personal work, because there's implicit biases that are showing up that are impacting the way teachers are showing up in the classroom. And, that is harmful. And even though they don't see it, they have this idea around, what they believe consciously, but subconsciously, there's a lot of things that they've been conditioned to believe when it comes to Black and brown people that is impacting the way that they're holding a classroom. And I do agree with Manuel about like circle keepers. I think they need people in space to teach them how to move through conflict. Those are things. There's RJ practices that are available in community that are held by different organizations that can come in and teach people how to, deal with conflict in a restorative way, so they have a better relationship with accountability. Most people's relationship with accountability means punishment. So it's really hard to move through that. When you can learn that accountability is, fixing ways that you show up and that you're in relationship with people, then it becomes a different thing. They need to be able to have the language in the school and the skills to do that. And then before you know it, they don't need a teacher or anybody else to do it, because they're doing it on their own.
Wow. I thought I was a facilitator. Devin, you must also be a facilitator. But I feel like I just went to a workshop. So thank you. And thank you, all four of you, one more time again. That was some incredible nuggets of wisdom. Clearly, you all are doing the work, personal and professional. And it's really just an honor to be in this space and have all four of you here together, sharing and building on each other's ideas. Audience, I would love to invite you again to offer up some gratitude to the men in our panel, and also the babies too. Babies are important. Fathers are very important, Black fathers. And we're going to also, audience members, give you all some time to interact with the learnings you just received. So we have some reflection questions for you. We're going to send you out into breakout rooms. You're going to be with those same folks that you broke the ice with earlier. So you hopefully won't have to reshare names, pronouns, or nothing. That should be familiar. And we want to give you an opportunity to reflect. I know some people are think to talkers, some people are talk to thinkers. Either way, we're hoping that this will support you in your learning. I think that I'm just going to share because we still have gratitude coming into the chat. So we probably won't put the questions in the chat. I'll share the screen now. Stacy, am I forgetting anything?
Nope, I just popped them in the chat, but they're probably going to be drowned out by all that appreciation. So your screen is a good idea.
Great. Well, here are the questions. So we want you to go into the space and chat with each other about any thoughts, reflections, or questions that are coming up for you. And then, just like I said, I feel like Devin teed me up perfectly there. I want you all to think about some accountability. What is a step that you're going to take in your circle of influence? So as a human being, all of us have some power, right? I can affect somebody, at least one person. I have impact on them. And so in that circle of influence, what is a step that you all can take right now to actually disrupt the school to prison pipeline? We got lots of blueprints and pathways and mindset shifts for you to choose from. All right, are we ready?
Ready.
All right, let's go. Can you all see my screen still with the correct questions?
Yep.
Sweet. Would you like to pause the recording? Yes, thank you.
We consider our work to be upstream. So we are aiming to create more equitable school communities that help prevent that school to prison pipeline that we've heard so much about. Our work is done really through changing the systems in schools, as well as working with educators to help support them. We do that through restorative practices, through social emotional learning, responding to and understanding the impact of trauma, addressing disproportionate discipline methods, and really just building school communities that work for all young people.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. So my name is Alan Wong. I am also a facilitator with Belong Partners. And first, I just want to say thank you so much to everybody who spoke in the panels before, particularly the young folks, but everybody who's doing this really powerful work to disrupt the school to prison pipeline. And as Aaron mentioned, we have this small role at Belong Partners that's really upstream within the school to prison pipeline. So we're working with elementary schools that are working with these students from the time they're 5 years old, 6 years old. And we know that's where the school to prison pipeline begins. We know that's where oftentimes Black and brown students are disproportionately punished, are disproportionately disciplined in a way that is often harmful, and really is the beginning of the harm that we see happen through the school to prison pipeline. And so our work, I think you all spoke beautifully to what the cost is of those systems. And what we try to work on is changing that jailhouse culture that exists in so many schools. So we work alongside primarily elementary schools, also some middle schools, to really help teachers and students learn ways to be able to help students learn from their mistakes, to be able to restore harm when it's happened, and be able to solve problems within the context of a community of belonging. So I heard from a lot of people, especially the young people, that just the experience of belonging would make such a huge difference to being able to feel like they have a place within their school and like school is for them. So that's really the work that we try to do. And we do that mostly by, this was something else that was, I think Dr. Ben mentioned this. We do this not by necessarily working with the students. You all heard those young people. We know they're brilliant. They have so many ideas to be able to solve our problems. We do it mostly by working with educators and helping to train educators to respond to behaviors in a more restorative way. So we wanted to do, most of what we do is not just sitting and talking at people. What we try to do is actually do activities that help educators or other adults recognize some of the harm that can be caused through these disciplinary practices and learn new ways. So if you're up for it, I'm going to ask you to participate with me in one of these activities. And what I'm going to ask you to do in a moment is to think about a time when you were a young person and you were punished. And I want to pause it right there because I want to say, I know that's a vulnerable question for many people. So I'm going to ask you to just think of something that works for you if you choose to go there, and always know what takes priority is taking care of yourself. But if you're up for it, I'm going to ask you to think about a time in your own life when you were a young person and you were punished. And I want you to think about, what were you feeling when that happened to you? And also, what were you thinking and deciding? So what were you thinking and deciding about the person who was punishing you? What were you thinking, deciding about yourself after that happened? I'm just going to give you a moment to think about that time. And again, you take care of yourself. You're the protector of your own story. Again, what were you feeling when you were punished as a young person? What were you thinking and deciding? So I know that's not necessarily like the most enjoyable walk down memory lane, but we also think it's important for us to connect personally with our own experiences of this. So what I'm going to ask folks to do now, if you choose to, is to share in the chat just how you were feeling. What were some of the feelings you had after you were punished as a young person? And we're just going to get a few of them up there. Not everybody has to put one in, but go ahead and just put, what are some of these feelings? So I'm just going to read out some of them. So I see confused, shame, angry. I see shame times 3 already in a very short list. I see defeated, dysregulated, betrayed, outraged. So I know more and more are going to come in because we all have our own experiences with this being punished as young people. And there's a lot of pain that I'm seeing in these feelings. And one of the things that is wild to think about is that, you know, we don't know that the intention of the person who was doing that punishing was to make you feel these terrible ways. And that was the result for so many of us, right? Even though the idea of the punishing was like, oh, this is going to make you do better, but actually we see how much we ended up feeling worse. So I'm going to ask folks now also to add in here, and I'm just going to hold that these are some very deep, and for some of us, very painful feelings. So just holding that, and again, kind of being with ourselves, being with each other. And I would say, I'm going to ask now if people put into the chat, what are some of the things you were thinking and deciding after you were punished? So these are all these different feelings that people had. What were you thinking and deciding about that person who punished you or about yourself? Okay, how much am I going to lie to my parents about this punishment? How much can I get away with that lie, right? I see some people nodding their heads like they know that one. I'm going to be more secretive in the future. Some people saying, can I feel safe again after this happened to me? I lost respect for my principal. I emotionally left school. I wondered if this was the person I was going to be now. Wow. So we see from a young age the impact of punishment and what it makes us decide and how we're going to respond to school, and also what we're going to decide about ourselves. And so what we're going to do in a second is we're going to open up a poll. I'm not going to ask you not to fill it out yet, but in that poll, it lists some of what we call the results of punishment, which are very much reflected in these responses here. And I'm just going to read those off so we can kind of let those sink in, and then you get a chance to interact with the poll. And in the poll, it's going to be anonymous. You're going to be able to choose as many answers as you like. So if we can pull that poll up. So I'm just going to share with you these results of punishments before you answer. So oftentimes there's a revenge. They're winning now, but I'm going to get even, right? Sometimes there's that resentment. This is unfair. I can't trust adults anymore. I can't trust this teacher. I can't trust the school. I can't trust adults in general. Sometimes it's rebellion. I'm going to show them I can do whatever I want. They can't stop me. Sometimes it's retreat, getting sneaky. We saw that. I think that was from one of the pastors, right? Who said, oh yeah, I'm gonna figure out how I'm not gonna get caught next time. That's Pastor Andrew there, right? Reduce self-esteem. So this feeling of I'm a bad person because of this. And for some people, maybe it's none of them. So just go ahead, as you feel comfortable, go ahead and put your answers to these into the poll. So you can just take these in. And you see it's really across the board. There's so many different ways we respond to this act of being punished as a young person. And so you can see that this is something that we all have experienced. And we also know, due to the school to prison pipeline, certain people, certain young people are disproportionately impacted, are disproportionately harmed. And our work is really to change that, particularly for those young people, but for all young people. And so I want to share one quote with you when it comes to this this response to punishment. And so this comes from L.R. Nost, and they say, discipline is helping a child solve a problem. Punishment is making a child suffer for having a problem. To raise problem solvers, focus on solutions, not retribution. I'm going to put that in the chat as well. So this is what we're trying to help us move to as teachers, as educators. And I know a lot of times we say, well, this is what we grew up with. This is what we know. And so if not punishment, then what? What do we do? And I'm going to pass it to Aaron to kind of take us into that conversation. Thanks, y'all.
Yeah, thanks, Alan. Appreciate that. So, you know, as we're thinking about this idea of punishment, schools and educators have started to move away from this idea of like direct punishment. And I, you know, definitely accentuate that some, not all, but some. And some of them have moved towards this idea of consequences. So when you break a rule, you get a consequence for your action. So I want you to take a second to imagine some typical consequences that a teacher might impose on a 4th or 5th grader who's coming in regularly late from recess. So like, just think about what are some of the typical consequences that a teacher educator would impose on a young person who's coming in late regularly from recess. So as we think about these consequences that we have typically putting on our young people, I'm going to share my screen here. This is a list of some of the things that we see often from educators. You might lose a minute for every minute you're late. You might lose recess for a day. You might be sent to the office. You might miss out on a fun activity, something fun that the class is doing. And as you can see, most of these consequences are based on losing something, right? Like having something taken away from you. So consequences have been evolving, and we're starting to think about what they actually are and what kind of impact they have on young people. So as we move into this idea of consequences, we know that consequences can often be reasonable, related, respectful. And when we think about consequences, we're going to move into having them be solutions. And solutions are consequences. They are still a consequence for an action, and yet they are also helpful. So consequences are focused in on paying for what you've done in the past, right? Having something taken away from you, having some sort of consequence for what has happened in the past. Solutions move us towards the future. Solutions are going to help us build skills, be brought into the community in a way that helps us do better next time, helps us learn to be a part of the community rather than excluded from that community. So I want to invite you all to help us come up with just some ideas for solutions for this young person who is coming in late from recess every day. So this is where you get to help us out, help us get creative and think about what are some solution ideas. I'll give you a second to think about it, and if you want to go ahead and throw some of those in the chat. What are some solution ideas we have for a young person who's coming in late from recess regularly? Some ideas that might help them do better next time. So in that, we might ask why they're coming in late. We might have a problem-solving conversation. We might give them a whistle and ask them to like help, blow the whistle to help other people come in on time. Might find a buddy. They might have a job that's going to help them like feel like they matter, like their contribution matters. And so I also see a regular pattern here too, which is like asking that young person, like, what's going on for you? Why are you coming in late? And that really involves a relationship with that young person. So when we do solutions, we often think about this idea that solutions are really about bringing people in. They're not about paying for the path, paying for what you've done, but really about how do we bring someone into this community? How do we help them do better next time? And so as you think about this idea of solutions, what I'm going to have you do is have you take a look at this list here that I'm going to share in a second, and think about two things. One of them is what is going to help them do better next time, and which one helps them feel like they belong. So here we go. The solutions. We've got ask a student why they're late, give them a whistle buddy system, give them a job. Whoops. Which of these lists helps them feel like they belong? Helps bring them into the community. Oftentimes educators will say solutions, even though more often that we are used to the idea of consequences. The next thing that we want to think about is power. We're talking about how do we level out that power structure that we know we have a lot of inequities around. So which list has the adult in power? Most often that's consequences. Which list has the young person be a part of that solution? Have power, be able to step into their power and make a decision that's going to help them do better, that is relied on their lived experience and how they show up in community. That's the idea of solutions. And so as we think about this idea of solutions, we think about how we're not actually talking about not having consequences for your actions. I think that has to be abundantly clear. What we're talking about is having those solutions actually help solve the problem. Having those consequences actually solve the problem. We imagine a world where the focus is on solutions in a way that brings them into the community. So solutions are done in a context of one-on-one relationships, and they're also done in the context of student-led groups. So I heard multiple people talk about this idea of young people leading the way, young people being a part of the solution. And I want to acknowledge that some of you, many of you might already be doing this, might really be leaning into bringing young people into solving the problem. So when we think about our work, we think about it, our work as having young people have the power over their own education, both individually and within a community. And it's about moving away from the traditional school model of compliance and control and moving towards community and collaboration. And so we know that shifting educator mindsets is only part of the work. It's also critical that we change the system. So one of the systemic changes that we make in schools is around their discipline practices. So this is one of the things that we share with schools. It's called the referral response plan. So things happen, students are referred. We know disproportionately Black and Brown students are referred. But what we know is that when there's a plan that centers the person rather than the punishment, that has a huge impact. And so this is a systemic way that we change how discipline matters are handled in school. And they focus on regulating, helping that student regulate their nervous system, relating with them, and then reflecting, finding a chance to repair their harm, and then building skills, helping them come into the community and do better next time. And so as we think about this idea, in a second, I'm gonna share a video with you that is our one-on-one way, our individual way of how we're changing the system. And that is through this referral response. And so the video is a young person who is actually sharing their real experience, but they're doing it with in a different way. It's like take two of this experience. We will acknowledge it's a very small thing. So this young person was kicked out of class because of tapping a pencil. And yet we know that that's how it starts, right? So we're going to share this video with you. And this is the reflection part of our referral response plan. So this adult is reflecting with this student.
What happened? I was tapping my pencil on the table and my teacher didn't like it, so she sent me out to the hallway because it was distracting. And then she let me back inside. I forgot and I started doing it again. She sent me to the office and yeah, I'm just here now.
What did you notice was going on in your body when that was happening?
I didn't want to be in that situation. I didn't want to be there. I was very mad. I didn't feel like doing anything right then and there.
So what I'm hearing you saying is that, you know, you really felt like you wanted to get out of the situation. Like it wasn't a place that you wanted to be in. What do you think the problem to solve is?
Maybe just sitting down with my teacher, talking to her, talking about what can I do for me to still move my body around, but still not be a distraction to the class, but also still be able to learn.
What other thoughts or ideas do you have right now?
Maybe just playing with a fidget, not like loud or anything. Just like very quietly, just for a minute or two, and then focus back onto what she was saying.
Oh, okay, so you're starting to already think about like what could be part of the plan for you to go and figure out what works for you. Okay, cool.
And so with that, that is really one of the ways that we can show up in schools. So I want you to just take a second to imagine what it might be like if those were the kind of conversations that were had. Instead of, what did you do? And here's the punishment or consequence that is given to you. So just take a second to imagine that. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Alan to talk a little bit more about what this looks like in community.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. And somebody put in the chat, this is true. So like, this is an example that shows a behavior that is very small, and that is not something that a teacher should be sending a student to the principal's office for, but it gives an example of how this process can work and how it can work with all kinds of challenges, right? And I see some people saying this kind of stuff happens all the time, even when it is these small things. So we see these practices aren't necessarily changing. And we're doing our best to support teachers to find new ways. So I do want to share with us just briefly, one of the ways in community we support educators and students to be able to solve problems, to be able to restore harm when it happens, and also to prevent harm from happening is by helping to implement class meetings within classes. And so we're going to show you in a second a video of a class meeting, which is really where it's student-led. They get to think about what the problems are they want to solve, and they work together to figure out what the solutions are going to be. So you see the brilliance and the wisdom of young people. This is from a school we've worked with for a long time. And again, it's a very small thing that we've decided to talk about, but you will see the power of young people getting to come up with their own solutions and implement their own solutions. So we'll watch that brief video.
Joanna, would you like to talk about your problem of how the class comes in excitedly and we don't calm down? I think we need to work on how we come in the classroom. Share the feeling while others listen, or discuss it without fixing, or ask for solutions. Ask for solutions.
Right, can you describe the problems a little bit more?
So when we come in from recess, it's kind of noisy and people are all over the place and they're not sitting at their desks.
but we're thinking about solutions to calm down after recess.
I think we should, you should just do what you're supposed to do and remind people to not be in noise. So we should do like calming down like maneuvers because like what we did like stretches and stuff. Joanna, so we're gonna vote about it since it's a class problem. Do what you're supposed to do, stretches, take deep breaths, take a couple of seconds on the ramp, turn off the lights and put our heads down, refill our water bottles because it's hot outside, and wiggle. Turn off the lights and put your heads down.
You don't really need the teacher you just need the teacher to make sure like the solutions aren't crazy or something, but really you're just helping your classmates in a class meeting because you're not relying on the teacher to do everything for you.
I feel like comfortable at this class. I feel like I could tell like any one of these teachers or any one of these students how I feel about something. Like I feel like this right here is a trustworthy school.
So we're going to close up our piece, but that's what we are hoping is that more schools feel that way and more students feel like their schools are trustworthy. And it does begin with us helping educators to figure out ways to change their practices and change the way that they're seeing young people so we can nip it in the bud. So thanks so much for spending some time, and I'm going to pass it to Sylvia.
Thanks, Al.
Thank you so much, Alan and Aaron from Belong Partners. Audience, feel free to offer up whatever you want into the chat in thanks to our two co-facilitators. So what we want to do next, we've heard lots of different solutions from different people. You just got a mini workshop on punishment and a different way to approach discipline. You heard straight from the youth, as well as the four gentlemen who were practitioners of this work. And we're actually going to give you all some time in breakout rooms before we close our evening tonight to hear directly from some of the people that are here representing the different organizations that put this event together. So there will be representatives from 6 different of the organizing organizations. So we will have a room
So
for
it's actually going to be, I think, 4 or 5.
Okay, great. I won't say who we have a room for then, because I'm not sure. But there will be 4 or 5 different rooms with 4 or 5 different representatives from 4 or 5 of the different organizations. And it'll be an opportunity for you to go in and hear directly from some of the other partners on this event, just about some of the different solutions that they are implementing. Also, looking ahead at the end, there will be an opportunity for you to let us know if you'd like to hear from either my organization, Belong Partners, or any of the other partner organizations on this event too. So if you're having a hard time deciding between breakout rooms, just know there will be more opportunities for you to connect. All right, I think without further ado, we will probably open up those rooms, and you can feel free to use this kind of like a World Cafe moment. And then we will all close together just before 9.
So what will happen is the different rooms are going to open up. So there's a room for Ashe, there's a room for Belong Partners, there's a room for Breakfast Group, and there's a room for Center for Children and Youth Justice. And you're going to have 10 minutes in those breakouts. And we have someone who's going to be in that room taking notes for you. And so our note takers are here, and they know where they're going. And so they will take notes, and they'll bring some wisdom back to the whole group in about 10 minutes.
So when the breakout rooms are open, you should be able to select for yourself.
To be able to see it.
That was not 10.
It was 10 minutes and a 30-second callback, but by the time people got in your room, it might not have felt like 10
Yeah,
minutes.
yeah.
That's all right. I was going really fast.
It sure did. It sure did.
It's a beginning conversation.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Thank you. Thank you.
Gilda, I was hitting my stride, and then it said go back to the main room. I'm like, oh man.
All right, y'all. Thank you so much. As everyone was just commenting, especially Billy and Dr. Carter there, that was not enough time. And also, this was intended to be the beginning of a conversation. Gilda so lovingly foreshadowed the first of many. Not sure what that means. And I also know what that means because I'm picking up what you're putting down. But without further ado, I am going to pass the mic back over to Dr. Shepard and Rabbi Jay just to close our evening out with some final gratitude.
Thank you, Sylvia. This has been really a remarkable conversation. I can't believe that this was 2 hours. We wondered whether we could do this for 2 hours, and to me, the time went so quickly. To me, a measure of the success is I have more questions than answers at the end of this session. But I feel like I've learned so much already, and I'm just so curious to go deeper, and that's really our intention. So if you'd like to join us, let us know. We don't know what we're going to do next, but we promise you that we will listen to you, take your feedback very seriously. So the first thing you can do is let us know if you'd like to continue this conversation in some way. Give us your feedback about this session. Any comments, any ideas that you have by filling out the survey, that'll be really helpful to us. And then our next task is to get these groups together, the people who are here tonight, and talk about what the next step might be. But we're very excited about the fact that there definitely is going to be a next step. And we hope that we've given you a little bit of insight into the nature of the challenges that we face with our young people. We also hope that we've given you some encouragement from seeing that there are things that are working. There are people doing really good work out there. And our challenge is to how to grow these approaches, how to expand them so that we reach all of our children. Gilda?
Yeah, I'm fond of quoting a man named Amilcar Cabral from Guinea-Bissau in sub-Saharan Africa. He says, "Tell no lies, claim no easy victories." Today, we started a conversation, right? And we will continue this, but we need the feedback from you all, and always put our ear to the ground to our youth. The subject, right? There was a question people constantly asked in the chat. What was going on in the teacher's body? I talked to people, like I said, I'm at this film festival, and this person from, I think, Florida or Texas, and said, you can't even say the word race in a classroom. You can't even say it. Now, our youth didn't say the word race, but they spoke from their racial construct, right? We are so happy to have all of you here. This is something that we want, and we will continue, and we will talk, yes, because that could be the beginning of us stepping our feet out on into doing something. Tell no lies, claim no easy victories. There's always more solutions. Right? When I was teaching in prison, Anthony Wright had a group called Choices and Consequences, where youth would come into the prison and talk to men in prison. And the first thing Anthony would say, and it was administrators at the prison, youth, teachers, other men who are incarcerated, and he would ask, what's the stupidest thing you ever did? So he started out with unity. He started out with saying that we all make these mistakes. And so every time you think you have a solution, it moves. So we will constantly interrogate in a good way, compassionately ourselves, and keep stepping into our brave space and making sure that, as our youth said, don't just do with the exterior, go to the interior. Don't just talk about the cons, what you're doing wrong and those kinds of things. One of the mothers of the youth said, I'm so glad you're doing this. Maybe next time we can have parents and youth in a conversation about certain things. Teachers and youth in a conversation. But one thing they always said is that, please always include the youth. Tell no lies, claim no easy victories. We are just beginning once again. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, everyone. And just so you know, you'll get an email tomorrow morning with some follow-up information about each of the organizations. We want to stay connected to you. So if you haven't yet filled out that survey, please do that before you leave. We'll send an email again. Thank you all for joining us.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you. Good night. Thank you.